AGI is a bunch of BS. We're never going to have machines that can do everything humans can do. We wouldn't want them, and they just couldn't do it. Humans, as I said, represent 3.8 billion years of embodied evolution.
Welcome to Back to the Future podcast. My name is Victor Sadia, and I talk with brilliant minds and hearts of people who want to uproot and transform the current health and wellness paradigm. Jamie Metzl is a writer, futurist, and leading thinker on artificial intelligence, biotechnology, genetics, geopolitics, and the future of humanity. He is the author of Hacking Darwin, Superconvergence, and the AI 10 Commandments, and has worked across international affairs, human rights, global policy, and emerging technologies. In this episode, I speak with Jamie about artificial intelligence and the present and future of humanity. We begin with Jamie's smile and his particular kind of optimism, one that does not avoid darkness but insists on looking directly at it. From there we move into grief, the loss of his father, the pain of war, the emotional cost of technological acceleration, and the things we may already be losing without knowing how to mourn them. Jamie speaks about the need to stay connected to life even inside the cave of grief, the importance of zero technology spaces, the danger of algorithms that monetize our attention, and why human creativity, presence, embodiment, and love remain irreplaceable. This is not a conversation about whether AI is good or bad. It is a conversation about what kind of humans we will need to become in order to meet the future without surrendering our humanity. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have Jamie Metzl. Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
My great pleasure, Victor. It's great to be with you. We've been friends for a long time, and this is our next chapter together.
It is, and I thank you. And I want to start with acknowledging your huge smile, which is one of the traits.
Now I have to. What if I wasn't going to smile? Now I have to do it.
That's the thing. You've been smiling since you were born.
It's true. It is true.
And you know that phrase where they say you don't see the world as the world is, but as we are. Yeah. Well, I think your world is colored by the smile that you carried since childhood.
Oh, you're sweet to say. Thank you.
And in that sense, that's why you have so many friends, and that's how you move so many energy. But at the same time, and I want to go to a place where you haven't been. When in the past few years you lost your smile, in a sense that you enter in there's this thing that I'm working now, thinking about, which is the dark night of AI, which is one of those nights where you realize that the whole thing will just implode. And you go in that mood, and you go into that dark night, and you don't know who you really are. So I don't know if you had that experience, but I would love to get from you when in the past 2 years that smile fell off its face for a while.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. Maybe I'll start earlier. And years ago, my very first novel that I wrote when I was a pretty young guy, and I had lived in Cambodia for 2 years, and I'd worked in a refugee camp on the Thai-Cambodian border, seeing just the excruciating pain and suffering in the aftermath of the Cambodian genocide. And I had started that work when I was 18 because it was so important for me, even though I'm a huge optimist, to not be a blind optimist, to not have my smile be a smile just because I'm not looking at anything else. My father and grandparents were never in a camp, but they're technically Holocaust survivors. And my father, who came to the United States as a refugee in 1948 after the war, terrified and not speaking a word of English, he lived his entire life as kind of a crazy optimist, where people's criticism of him is like, what are you so happy about? And anyway, so in my first novel, one of the characters was a very idealistic student who goes to work in a refugee camp on the Thai-Cambodian border. The character wasn't me, and that character actually didn't have layers underneath his idealism and optimism. And so he has actually a kind of a bad outcome. But when he is articulating what he's aspiring to do and what his personal creed is he articulates in the novel is to stare wide-eyed into the heart of darkness as a hero of the world of light. And so, I mean, I overblew that statement for that character in the context of that novel, but it's my general view that to be an optimist, if you're a blind optimist, that actually can be quite a harmful and dangerous and even negative thing to be. So I think that for me, optimism is about really looking at the world and really rolling up your sleeves and getting involved in addressing the worst things in the world and the hardest things in the world, but bringing a level of hope to that. And so, for me personally, I mean, I've said this many times, life is a sine curve with ups and downs. And if you recognize that the ups always follow the downs and the downs always follow the ups, you won't get too excited in the ups or too disappointed or depressed in the downs. But as you know, Victor, my beloved father passed away a little more than a year ago. And it was after a 3-year battle with cancer. And obviously, that was a horrible moment in my life. But it was also a celebration. It was a celebration of his remarkable life at the time of his diagnosis. We were told he would only live for a year, and I rolled up my sleeves and weighed in very, very heavily in his cancer care. And we did something that was very, very non-traditional, connected to the work that I do on the future of healthcare and precision healthcare and precision oncology, and that got us 2 years, and we celebrated those 2 years in all kinds of wonderful family times together, and I wrote a big feature on that experience for AARP magazine, which maybe you can link in the show notes. So that was obviously a huge negative. And terrible things happen over and over in our world. I think many of us were just horrified to see not just what happened on October 7th, but all of the pain and suffering that has emerged from that. I mean, right now, there are so many places around the world that are engaged in war, and for the work that I do, with deep technology and technological revolutions. On one hand, this is a moment of miracles. And I wrote about that in my last book, Superconvergence, about all these incredible things that we are doing and can doing in healthcare, agriculture, energy, the environment, sustainability, data storage. We're going to be able to decentralize the benefits of our cultural evolution, and so that everybody everywhere will have access to a complete virtual library, to unlimited tutoring in any field that you can imagine. And that should be incredibly exciting. And at the same time, these exact same tools are being used to slaughter people in Ukraine and elsewhere. They're being used to rob people, to manipulate information systems, like is happening here in the United States, where algorithmically people are being set at each other's throats and people are happily going along. So there's a lot of stuff that you just look at, and if that's all you're thinking, you could get really depressed. And I wouldn't fault anyone for being depressed, but there are two sides of this coin. And I think we have to look at both, and we have to say, well, what's the mission of our lives? And in my view, an important mission, at least for me, is to say, well, how do we want this story to turn out? And how much, not just hope and optimism, but hope, optimism, strategic thinking, disciplined execution, coalition building, all of those things can we do to try to build that future that we'd like to inhabit? And I think hope is a real asset in that process. A bunch of depressed people are going to have a hard time articulating a positive vision of the future and working in that direction. Again, I don't mean to undermine any of the real negatives or the real dangers. They are very real, but that can't be the whole story, and it isn't the whole story.
Thank you, Jamie. What's your relationship with grieving? Because I believe that when listening to you, that you have this power to see both sides of the coin, there's a somatic process that needs to happen inside of you so that your mind can see the other side, being the positive side. And that's something that I think grieving can allow, because grieving can allow to see it's there, feel what it makes us feel, but don't leave us stuck forever there. But
Yeah.
so yeah, when did you, yeah, take it from there.
Yeah, no, it's again a really wonderful question. I think all of us are grieving. All of us are grieving from the moment we're born because we're leaving the womb, which is this perfect safe place, and then you're there and you're screaming and crying and bewildered in this new environment. So I think it's just part of human nature is grieving. And I'm constantly grieving. I'm grieving for losses like the loss of my father that I just mentioned. I'm constantly grieving because I live in a world of possibility of what could be. And whenever you imagine what could be, let's call that 100%. 70% of what you imagine never happens, but you have to fight for that 100% to get to the 30. And so while you eventually can get to the point of celebrating the 30, you kind of have to go through a process of grieving the loss, either things that you have and lose or things that you can imagine and never achieve. But I completely agree with the context of your question, because if we become overcome by grief, that can define us. I mean, with the loss, a loss of a father or a partner or horribly a child or anybody else, you have to feel that grief. It's part of human. And so if people who just skip over that grief and say, oh, they're in the next world, or this is God's will, or whatever kinds of people say, I actually think that's very unhealthy. But at the same time, if we grieve forever and grieving becomes our core identity, that's equally unhealthy. I mean, I consider myself a Jewish atheist with Buddhist leanings, which makes me like many thousands and thousands of other people, at least here in New York City. But Judaism is very wise, in my view, on the issue of mourning. And there's a process of Shiva after somebody close dies, and it's structured and it requires a whole lot of very, very active remembering and commemoration. And it lasts a whole year in different phases. But in the Jewish tradition, at the end of that year, for believing Jews, it's actually you turn off the candle that's been lit for a year, and it's actually a sin to keep grieving. That doesn't mean not remembering and commemorating and all of those things. But in Judaism, the idea is that the mission is life. And we have to commemorate loss, but the mission is life. And we need to keep returning to the question of life. And what is the aspiration? And what are we trying to achieve? And the thing that we're trying to achieve is life and love and happiness and peace and all of those beautiful things. So we have to grieve, but that can't. It has to be in a time and a place, and it can't be forever, and it can't be the full story.
My experience has been that grief is like an abyss that we resist because we believe that if we fall into that abyss, we will never come back. And yet, grief is so powerful and will enter any way, shape, or form it can to allow for us to feel what is to feel when we have a loss. We fall into the abyss, we feel those feelings, and then the abyss spits us out or spits me out with renewed energy, right?
Yeah.
So I always think also about the indigenous traditions in Africa and in America, where the grieving activities were part of the weekly dances of the tribes, and they with music and with sound, and they wailed and they hug, and many things to process emotions. And then like the energy was regenerated. And I
Yeah.
love what you're saying. There's a time and a place, and
Yep.
yet we should allow the wildness of grief to take us into its arms, because if we go there, yes, we will be back, and I think we'll be back even stronger.
Yeah, it's like cave diving. I mean, although they just had a death where somewhere and with the cave diving, but it's like you can go into the cave, but if you're a good cave diver, you have your string that takes you back. And so I think that it is true that there are times of loss where we should just allow ourselves to feel what we feel, but we should never let go of that string that can lead us out of the cave because so for some people, the pit of grief spits them out, but for other people, it doesn't. So I think we should feel what we feel, but I think we need to stay connected to life. And so even at the greatest moment of grief, however terrible the thing is that it is being lost, there are also many things that are tying all of us, no matter who we are, to life. And we can't let go of those things even as we feel the grief.
I love this. I love this. Yeah, and that's why also they are singing and dancing while grieving, because those are also vital energies
Yes.
that
Yeah,
can
yeah.
connect you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we speak about the future now in the AI times, mostly through excitement or fear. But probably in the light that we're talking about here is that probably a right emotional category on the times we're living is grief. So what are we already losing as we move into this new technological civilization? And what losses are we refusing to mourn at this time?
Well, every shift in life, and certainly every major civilizational shift like this, you get stuff and you lose stuff. And if you could never lose, you would never get. And if you only focused on just what you're getting and not what you're losing, we would become unmoored because humans aren't being created de novo. We represent 3.8 billion years of evolutionary history. So, like with every transition, with the domestication of fire, agriculture, industrialization, computerization, we're always losing things and we're always gaining things. And I think that it's not that we should over focus on one or the other. We just, I think, need to have a process for saying, well, here are the things that we have the potential to gain, and here's how we want to gain them, and here's how we want to do so in the most respectful and sustainable manner possible. And here are the things that we might lose. And some of those things that we might lose, we can choose to hold on to because we value them so much. And some things we may feel, well, we need to let go a little bit. I mean, again, I'll go back to Judaism. At the time of the printing press, there was a choice of having sacred books all be printed, and Judaism decided, well, no, we're not going to do that. Our sacred book, the Torah, is going to be done in the old-fashioned way. It's going to have a physical existence on parchment, written by hand in a specific way, connecting to ancient scribes. And you may like that or not like that. You know, Protestantism and Christianity went in a different direction, but there are always these kinds of things, and there are some things where it looks like we could lose them, and that's why it's really important when I that we say, well, what are the things that we want to keep? And so I give a lot of talks in which I reference AI and education, and I feel like everybody in education and frankly in all of life, you should have part of life where you're kind of all in with technology, where you're thinking, well, what is possible in this new age of AI and other revolutionary technologies? How can this take me further than otherwise might have been possible? And I tell everybody, you need to have a pretty significant portion of your life, which is a zero technology space, where you are doing just being a physical human in your way, and if you don't do both of those things, you're going to get detached from your core humanity. And humans, I mean, we are a technological species. For the last million years since our ancestors controlled fire, it's connected to why we're here, at least in these numbers, and how we're here, and even our evolved biology is connected to previous technologies like controlled fire and agriculture. But we can't just jettison our core humanity. If everybody becomes these digitized beings, we're going to have such even bigger mental health crisis than happening than is happening now. So some things we may have to give up, and we can grieve them, or we can make them kind of nostalgic ways to do things, like the 8-track tape. I'm sure that there are people out there who listen to music on 8-track tape, but it's kind of 8-track tape is kind of gone, and maybe some people miss it, but it's gone, and it served its purpose at a time, and now we've moved on. But there are things like an intimate conversation with a close friend where there's not a bunch of beeps and noises coming from your phone, or broken up attention, or loving physical humans and needing to have physical humans around. So I just think that we humans individually and collectively are going to have to negotiate what of the potential new stuff is the stuff that we want, and what of the old stuff is the stuff that we value, and maybe even we're willing to live lives that might seem less efficient in certain ways, but we're doing it for a reason, because there are things that we value and want to preserve.
I love this. How is your job? Because I know you do many things, but specifically two things. You're a writer and a speaker.
Yeah.
You're conveying information, and
Yes.
and arguably robots have access to more intelligence and data to deliver quote unquote better books and better talks in terms of the information they are conveying.
Yeah, can I tell you they don't?
Yeah.
Because we are humans. We are coded to experience things from other humans. I mean, my work is so whatever the frontiers, whatever AI can do, I am a humanist. I don't believe I summarize my view on artificial general intelligence, AGI, in 7 letters: AGI, IS, BS. AGI is a bunch of BS. We're never going to have machines that can do everything humans can do. We wouldn't want them, and they just couldn't do it. Humans, as I said, represent 3.8 billion years of embodied evolution. We're not just a bunch, like a transcript of words or even mental processes, conscious mental processes. So the idea of AGI is ridiculous. But there will be a new average. There will be a new baseline for what any human can do if they put in a halfway decent prompt into AI. And that's the baseline. That's the worst. So, but there's always going to be room for people who are saying, well, starting from there, here's here's what I'm adding. And humans will always have something to add across the board. And whether it's the loving kind, my mother is in an independent living facility in Denver here in the United States. And even when the cleaners come in, they're cleaning, but they're also playing a very important human role of connecting with people. Could there be a robot that asks questions? Yes. Would it be the same as a loving, caring human? No. There's so much wisdom, so much capacity that humans have. I mean, people, there's an author, quote unquote author, named Mia Ballard, who just had her book Shy Girl pulled from the shelves by her publisher and my former publisher, Hachette. And it was because about 80% of the book was written by AI, just pressing a couple of buttons, and the AI largely wrote the book, and that was pure fraud. But I'm in New York, and I'm not far from the Museum of Modern Art. And in the Museum of Modern Art, there's a 3-story digital installation by a wonderful artist named Refik Anadol. And what Refik has done is taken digital images of the entire collection of MoMA and created an AI algorithm that's kind of riffing on these images, and it creates this phantasmagoria of shape and light and color. It's like a big flowing lava lamp, and it's mesmerizing, and it's beautiful, and it's something a human couldn't have done alone, and an AI couldn't have done alone. And the thing that the AI is doing is having a dialogue with centuries of human artistic creation. And modern art, of course, is a dialogue with millennia of human artistic creation before. So yes, AI will create an average, and frankly, it'll be a bad average because everybody in the world can do it. And the human creativity, and there will always be a role for human creativity, is the value add. That's the starting point. And so I don't mean to contest your question, but I'm a real humanist. I really believe in human capacity. I think we have unlimited potential. And frankly, almost all of our jobs, I mean, who among us is a hunter or a gatherer? So then we all became farmers. And then we found a way that we didn't have to be all farmers. And now we have all these amazing different things that we can do and expressions of creativity. How great that we can have machines that can take away aspects of our least creative work and give us the opportunity, if we get this story right and we get the structures and infrastructures right, to spend our time being superhumans, meaning wonderful humans, sharing love, creating, thinking of new ideas. We have unlimited new ideas, and the AI, what is it learning from? It's learning from human cultural history. I don't believe in AGI. I do believe in machine intelligence. I believe in machine superintelligence, but it's not our intelligence. It's machine intelligence inspired by many of the things, cultural, technological, and otherwise, that we have created. And again, there's some wonderful parts of this story. There's some terrifying parts of this story. And the name of the game now is how do we optimize the good stuff and minimize the bad stuff. But I think that we would be doing ourselves a real disservice. And I think people who are saying that humans are the new Neanderthals and there's going to be no role for humans, there will be no role for humans if we don't value what humans do and build structures and infrastructures around that. But how many of our jobs are these invented things? If you're in the United States, if you're the commissioner of the National Football League, American Football League, you're like a really important person. Imagine going in a time machine back 12,000 years ago to your hunter-gatherer ancestors, and you explain, oh, I'm the commissioner of the National Football League, and you explain the whole thing, and they say, well, hold on, I don't get it. Is that more like hunting, or is that like gathering? So we are meaning generations machines. We create these massive institutions, the Catholic Church or the National Football League or anything. And then humans spend their whole lives in these systems. We create exchanges, we create wealth. So I think we have a real potential, but this is going to happen very quickly, and there is a massive danger that the transition is going to happen so quickly that a lot of people are going to be gobsmacked and unemployed. And even if what I'm describing is something that happens on a societal and a civilizational level, it won't happen right away. And that's why things like the new AI legislation in California, the new papal encyclical, a lot of other are trying to say, well, what are the things that we need to do to ease this transition? And foremost among them are celebrating what it means to be a human, giving people all kinds of support. I don't support universal basic income, but I do support universal basic services, like they have in some European countries, where if you lose your job, you're not going to lose everything: your healthcare, your well-being, your home, your education. So I think there's a whole lot of work that we can do and should do, but I, for one, believe there's a very bright future for humanity if we choose that path.
I love this. And that's exactly what I wanted to get to because I see, since I met you as a speaker at an event, you were giving a very cool talk, but then you guided a cacao ceremony.
Hmm.
Now you're writing a novel, which you have written many so far. And
Yes.
that's exactly what I wanted to get to, which is AI is getting to a new baseline. It's improving in a sense your baseline, and now it is requesting from you to go even deeper into your humanity to create energy, movement, attention, knowledge, transformation through those 3.8 billion years of evolution. Um, So yeah, let's go there. How do you think that, in your case, it's amazing because it's writing, it's talking, and it's also counseling, governments and corporations, which is not only information, it's sitting everyone together in the same table or walking down a park and creating fraternity and empathy. So yeah, I want to speak about that in your profession. How are you digging deeper into your humanity in your job?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll break it up into pieces. So for writing, my feeling is, well, how do I keep riding this wave toward the next possibility, actually the next challenge and the next possibility? So um, my 4 books ago now, Hacking Darwin, it was about the future of human genetic engineering. And then I was giving a lot of talks and I give a lot of keynotes and I never use notes because I always feel like I want to be really interactive with the audience and I want to be thinking and rethinking as I'm giving my talk. So I kept saying, well, this talk is about human genetic engineering, but that's just one little piece of this bigger story, which is that after nearly 4 billion years of evolution, our one species suddenly has the increasing ability to engineer novel intelligence and re-engineer life. And the big question for us is, will we use it wisely, and how can we do so? And that led me to Superconvergence, which was about telling the story of how the intersection of AI, genetics, and biotechnology were going to change our world, including healthcare and agriculture and energy and these other sectors, and what it looks like when we get it right, and what it looks like if we get it wrong, and how to chart a path toward getting it more right than wrong. And that was all about values. And then I was thinking, well, this challenge of what values, because as we have these world-changing global technologies, and that led me to my current book, which is the AI 10 Commandments, in which I collaborated with GPT-5 to mine all of human recorded history, including all of our different religious, spiritual, moral, and ethical traditions, to come up with 10 universal principles based on all of us, that, if followed by everybody, would lead to the greatest amounts of peace, happiness, and human flourishing. But as I did that, I was really struggling, probing this question. Well, what does it mean to truly be human in an age not just of intelligent machines, but of creative machines? When I hear people say, oh, these machines will never be creative, they're going to be wildly creative. It's just not in exactly the ways that we are creative, ways that we will hugely appreciate and value, and they will astound us. But then humans will do things that will also astound us, just in different ways. So I was thinking a lot about that, and that was the impetus behind my new novel, which is coming out in February of 2027, called Virtuosa, which explores the intersection of AI, robotics, and classical music. And it's all set in a single night in the Berlin Philharmonic. So I think it's the best thing I've ever written. But it was like so much. It was like, on one hand, I wrote it like Thoreau in Walden Pond. It was just isolation and reflection and pure human thinking. On the other hand, one of the characters in the novel is a next generation music playing robot. And like I would do if I had a novel and one character was a beekeeper, I would go and just sit down with 10 different beekeepers and learn about their lives and who they are, and that would color that one character. And so writing about this music creating creative robot, what I decided to do was do a role play. So I went in GPT-5 and I described this whole character as much as I could. And I said, let's have a conversation where I'm me and you are this character. And again, it wasn't for the novel itself. It didn't, but it was for background understanding of that character. And we had these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful long conversations, which I've actually captured. And when the novel comes out, I will publish those as well. But I just thought it was really great. And so this was, I just like, my view is there's always a frontier. and the most creative humans in every sector. And whether it's healthcare or garden care or writing or whatever, in every sector, the most creative humans are the ones who are saying, well, all right, well, now there are these new possibilities. What can we do with that? I mean, again, garden care. I mean, there was a time when people didn't use lawnmowers, but then maybe somebody in gardening said, well, we can use the lawnmower, and then let's spend more time on the flowers or let's on the shrubs, or like there's always something that can be done differently, whatever you're doing. And there's always a frontier of something that's not previously been possible that now is possible. And the most creative people are going to be saying, well, what's possible? What can I do with that? What does it mean? And then what comes next? And I think that's pretty exciting. It's how our species has thrived for so many years. It's how we've expanded and grown. And yes, there are some downsides of humans, getting pretty much all over the earth, and we've destroyed a lot of things. But humans are kind of a wonderful species, and we've created some beautiful things of music and art and culture and all sorts of things. So I'm a real humanist, and now what that means is kind of exploring the frontiers. And it also means continually asking ourselves, what does it mean to be a moral, ethical human? What are our obligations to each other, to the world around us? How can we realize those obligations in a complex world where the easy answers aren't always easy, and there are a lot of different people with different backgrounds, and we need to balance various interests, and whether it's between different groups of people or the need to have, for example, safe oncology drugs to save people's lives. And maybe in some cases, there may be a need to do animal studies in order to get those safe drugs. And it's a trade-off. And that doesn't mean there's not suffering. It actually means that suffering is unavoidable in this world, but we should continually strive to live our most ethical lives.
Beautiful. Thank you. Uh, you are an optimist and not a blind optimist, but I can see also that you are a very courageous person. And I think that's um, sometimes overlooked. I don't know how people perceive you, but to being a person who sees reality and then chooses to smile, down underneath there's a lot of courage. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, and I appreciate it. And every life is a mix of different things. I know that for me, I mean, my life of kind of following your own truth, it's not for everybody. It's hard sometimes. There are ups and downs every time when I'm doing a release of a new novel or a new book. I'll just imagine, well, here's 100 things that might happen. And then a bunch of those things don't happen. And I always push hard, and I always kind of run into this brick wall of why aren't these other things happening? And some days I just fall into a hole and I think, ah, shit, it's ruined. And but then you kind of climb out like everybody else. And there are days when I think, well, it's really hard to kind of try to be creative every day. Maybe I should have accepted that offer from McKinsey, where there's like a whole structure of kind of somebody else's creative model. And I have those same thoughts that everybody would have. And I'm sure there are people who are dentists out there who are thinking, well, I should have been a novelist. Why am I doing dentistry all day? So all of life has trade-offs. But my general feeling is that we've only got one go of it, and so I've tried to, with big decisions in life, I've tried to muster the courage of saying, well, how do I want to live my life, and there are always costs. You can do what you do. I do, following my passions with kind of 100% of my wakeful energy. But I have these thoughts. Well, maybe I should have been a dentist. Once in a while, that would have been easier. So there's no answers, but striving is the thing. Articulating who we are to ourselves, what we stand for, how we want to live our lives, and then striving in that direction. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't work, or maybe some previous aspiration no longer fully fits. And we should have the courage to say, actually, this is what I thought at some point in the past. And now I've tried it, and now I need to grow and I need to adapt. And in my mind, that's how I aspire to live my life, for better and for worse.
Thank you, Jamie. I would love to control a bit more my algorithm, the one who sends me the shorts and the videos, because I'm very prone to just fall into that trap of seeing the world through the algorithm eyes.
Yeah,
And this is something that worries me in a general level, because we're all
yeah,
trapped by the algorithm, which just wants to expand our attention, our clicks, and not the best areas or
right.
facets of our
Yeah.
humanness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the algorithm is monetizing your psyche, and it's selling fractional pieces of your well-being and your psyche. That is the business plan for all of these things, is they're trying to turn you into an addict to get you to spend as much time on their thing. And then the reason why they have all these valuations, they are selling fractions of your attention to other businesses and informing those businesses about your specific identity and likes and dislikes. So everybody, if you are just scrolling through TikTok or Twitter, I mean, I'm quite active on Twitter. Um, you are like selling your brain space for free, frankly. And it's a really dangerous thing. So I'm not saying cut yourself off, but I am saying if that is your vehicle into the world, you're really going to get lost. Your attention is going to be weaponized against you. And we're seeing that with just so many young people are just being turned into mindless zombies. And it's one cause, often manipulated by foreign intelligence agencies, and then that ends, and then there's another cause, and people are willing to ruin their lives in the name of something that they'd never even heard of 2 weeks before, based on some kind of quote unquote education plan from TikTok, which is full of lies and manipulations, and that becomes your identity. And I just think that it's so dangerous. Our governments aren't protecting us, and so we have to protect ourselves. And the way to do it is through mindfulness. The way to do it is taking a step back and saying, well, how do I want to live? And it's hard because the algorithms are, myself included, they're calling to us all the time. And we all have to individually and collectively say, this is our journey. And how do we want to live it? If we say, well, technology is inevitable, whether it's the algorithm or just this story, AGI is coming, there's nothing we can do. All we can do is put our foot on the gas so that we win and China loses. And I am an accelerationist in many ways. Like, I think if we just say that we are powerless in this story, we will make ourselves powerless in this story. And that's the wrong answer. We are beneficiaries of better science and technology if we build the infrastructure around them. Even the international competition, it doesn't happen at the model level. It happens at the societal level. The societies that are best able to integrate these technologies for beneficial purposes across the board will be the winners. There could easily be societies that maybe even have the best models, but without those structures and infrastructures, will be at great risk.
But those days that you say that, whenever a book comes out and you are a bit worried or disappointed in a few things, or you have those bad days,
Yeah.
it's not just personal failure that it's bringing you down, or the potential interpretation of a personal failure, but it's really the idealism. You what gets you down is that you're trying to hold the weight of the world in your shoulders, my friend. It's not,
It's
oh,
true.
I wanted to
No,
sell
it's
more.
true. And it's a preposterous. No, I could care less about selling the financial stuff, I could truly care less. But you're absolutely right, and it's like you could really exhaust yourself, like trying to move the entire world, which is, it's on its own axis and its own rotation, and it's true. It's just true. So, but having said that, like my feeling is it's why I'm such an idealist is in the name of trying to do aspiring to do big things which are pretty much impossible. Along the way you can actually do some pretty magical little things, and that is kind of success. So for me, it's just so rewarding. Every day I'll get a really nice message from somebody with a new cancer diagnosis who found the AARP feature that I wrote about my dad and the action plan for what to do. And every day I get a message, something, I found this and it was so useful. And I have thousands of young people around the world who I've mentored, but who I've also learned a ton from. So for me, if it doesn't kill me, um, having these aspirations and trying my best to move in their direction with fits and starts and lots of failures, but some little successes along the way, and making friends like you, Victor. When I find people who kind of are aligned in spirit and aspiration, and who just think, well, you got a lot of options for the look on your face, but you may as well smile. It's the best of the available options. That's what a meaningful life comes from. And no matter what we do in the grand scheme of things, it's all kind of small, but it's important in our lives, and it's important for the people in our lives and the people who we touch in our lives, and whether it's our closest people or people we have a single interaction with, and that's kind of what the world is made of.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to. I've heard that you are not the best sleeper. That
Yeah, I'm
you,
terrible.
yeah. So in the name of humanity, I wish that you can sleep well, because we need people like you who sleep well and who
Thank you.
also forget about the world for a while and just snuggle and enjoy
That's
the
very
pillow.
sweet.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. That's very sweet. Yeah, I will do my best, and yeah, rock climbing. When I'm rock climbing, then I kind of, because I started technical rock climbing because I was naturally a little bit afraid of heights. But when I'm up there, I did this last summer in Wyoming. I did an 8 pitch climb that was, I should have never been on this thing. So it's 8 ropes up, and I just didn't want to look down because it was a whole way down. And I was really focused. I didn't know anything about the world. I didn't know anything about sleep. I just knew about these little handholds on the wall. So I think we're all just, every single person is trying to build meaning in their life, is trying to grow and do their little bit of good. And we all have our own different ways, and connecting with each other in every way possible. That's the story, and that's why we're a human species, and we're all parts of this. So anyway, I really appreciate this conversation. I really appreciate you, and I hope that other people will hear our conversation, and I hope that that will inspire them to have maybe similar conversations with people in their lives, and then this continuous flow of exchange will just kind of keep rippling across the world.
Thank you so much, my friend. You just gave it a 180 spin to my nervous system through a 45-minute conversation. I'm sure that anyone who's listening to this at this point, it's the same, and that just reinforces the hope circuit and the courage circuit. So thank you so much. I honor your path and consider me your friend and also your
I
your
do.
follower in the best sense of the word, so that we can keep co-creating love, hope, and beautiful things for everyone.
Thank you so much, my dear friend.
All the best to you, my friend, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Victor. I really enjoyed it.